And good morning, colleagues. I'm glad to see you all on this new round on informal consultations about the working paper presented by Argentina, President of the CSP6 in 2020, titled Transparency and Exchange of Information, Its Role in the Prevention of Diversion. As you all know, this draft has been amended many times, taking into consideration the comments of all the delegations, and on May 31st, we have circulated a new version, Rep 3, that took into consideration the comments we have received during our consultations in April with all the stakeholders. You may have seen that this new draft, Rep 3, only contains amendments to the recommendation number 7. This is because the Diversion Exchange Forum was finally created during the CSP6. So we are intended to adapt the language of this paragraph to recommend how the states involve the different state actors that can intervene in the detection of diversion cases, and where appropriate and in accordance with paragraph 8 of the terms of reference, could expand cooperation with the civil society in the DF as well. So the idea is to listen to delegations' comments on Rep 3. And with this, I will ask if you could please use the chat in case you need to make specific comments or questions or proposals. And use also the raise hand function. So I see that we have several delegations connected. And so Japan is asking for the floor. Please, Japan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ambassador. Good morning. And Japan appreciated the efforts by Argentina to advance the discussion on transparency and the exchange of information and its preparation of the revised version of this working paper for the upcoming CSP. Okay. And the working paper presented by Argentina includes many important elements of which Japan attaches importance. And we would like to share our comments on the section possible recommendation for the approval at CSP in this paper. In the third bullet point, it is we believe that it is a treaty obligations to designate and communicate a national point of contact. Therefore, it is not sufficient to merely just encourage to designate, communicate, and update national points of contact, as this could be seen to weaken the treaty obligations. In this regard, it is if this point needs to be included in the recommendations, the phrase "states are encouraged to" should be replaced with "states are obliged" under Article 5.6.2. In the same views, reporting on any new measures or changes in the national control system and submitting updates to their initial reports are also required by the treaty under Article 13.1. In this regard, we would prefer stronger language in the second part of this paragraph 2. And secondly, in the 6th bullet point, we see that the language of the latest version is updated and further elaborated to identify the specific situations. And however, on-site verification is not specified by the treaty. So we believe that we need to be cautious in adapting measures to prevent diversion that are not stipulated by the treaty, by CSP. So I'd like to share our comments in writing through the Secretariat after the meeting. Thank you, Ambassador.
Thank you, Japan. And if I may ask a question regarding your last comment, that on-site verification are not part of the language of the treaty. Which is your proposal instead of that, if you have any, if I may ask?
Sorry again, sorry.
If you say that you don't feel comfortable with the language of the Rep 3 that included to carry out on-site verifications, because you say that that language is not part of the language of the treaty. So which will be your proposal for that paragraph?
Yes, actually that we believe that it should be, we need to be cautious in adapting the measures that's not included in the treaty. So that's why on-site verification is not specified by the treaty. So that's why, yes, what you mentioned, that we are not include that on-site verification here.
I apologize for asking again. I understand your point. So which is your proposal for that paragraph, just to be sure? What is the wording that you propose for that paragraph? To take out simply to carry out on-site verifications of exports and imports?
And I mean that our original proposal was to make sure that the carry out the original version, it's last year, was carry out the export and import. Yes, now it's included on-site verification. It's specified the situations. However, we believe that the on-site verification is not specified by the treaty. So that's why we believe that we should be cautious if we need to adapt the measures as a prevention of the diversion in a treaty, in a CSP.
Thank you, Japan. I understand your point, but again, I'm very sorry. I don't want to be pushy or rude at all. But please, what I will ask is that we are in a different stage of the negotiation. We're about to have the CSP7. This is something coming from CSP6. And so now we need concrete wording in order to move forward to finalize the document. This is a Rep 3. We have wide consultations on this. So I understand that your point why you don't agree with mentioning, and I understand we have to be cautious, and so not to mention on-site verifications of exports, but we need concrete wording. If not, if you don't propose a concrete wording for this paragraph, I will do so as chair, taking into account your comment, and I can rehearse a wording, but we don't have much time to start discussing issues under each paragraph. We have to be concrete proposals. For example, your proposal, your amendment proposed for 3 is very understandable, is concrete, is to the point, and I don't see many opposition to your amendment proposal, which is very understandable that it is an obligation to establish a national point of contact. So in that case, I will take your proposal to replace in number 3, encourage, or oblige under Articles 5.6 to designate, etc. But what I don't get yet, and it's my responsibility as being proponent of the paper in the Rep 3, is what is your concrete proposal on number 6? How it will be the end wording for number 6? So states are encouraged. I understand that you have no problem with the wording taking into account their national capacities. States are encouraged, taking into account their national capacities, to carry out verifications of exports and imports and to exchange information on issued authorizations, or to carry out I ask you, Japan,
Okay.
if paragraph 6 says the following: states are encouraged, taking into account their national capacities, to exchange information on issued authorizations and the mentioned verifications with the states involved in the operation in order to facilitate early detection of diversion during international transactions. So is the amendment proposed by Japan would be, for example, to erase or take out the expression that says to carry out on-site verifications of exports and imports. And if we take that out and we cross that out, that will be satisfying for Japan?
Thank you very much for detailed explanations, Ambassador. Let us discuss with the capital, and then I will come back at the earliest possible later after the meeting. Is it okay? Thank you very much for your proposal. Thank you.
Okay.
And we will submit the concrete, if we need it, concrete proposal in writing later on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The same way that you did with number 3. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. South Africa is asking for the floor. You have the floor.
Thank you, Ambassador, for giving me the floor.
Good morning.
Yeah, let me just quickly pull out my comments that I've made. So South Africa would like to thank Argentina for this important initiative. Regarding your working paper, we've got a couple of comments that we would want to make. Let me start by the second paragraph, transparency and exchange of information in the ATT. We would maybe suggest that we the sequence of the sentence in the first paragraph, it's maybe just to turn it around, so that we first talk with the second sentence and basically speaks to the initial report, and then followed by the annual reports, because in terms of the treaty, the first report that state parties submit is the initial report, and then we submit, on an annual basis, the annual report. So maybe language that we can propose is that in this regard, states are encouraged to report on measures taken in addressing diversion, and also to submit annual reports concerning authorized or actual exports and imports, is provided for in Article 11.6 and in Article 13, respectively, something to that effect. That will be our first point. And then if we go further down, we also saw that the paragraph that starts with possible recommendations for approval at CSP, we would suggest that we delete the word possible, and also for approval at CSP. The rationale for that is that when a document is submitted to the CSP, it's you either make recommendations. If you leave the word possible, then it creates impression of some sense of uncertainty. So we think it's important to delete possible. And in terms of for approval, our view is that we make recommendation to the CSP. It's up to the CSP to decide what to do with the recommendations, whether they want to approve it, whether they want to note it, etc. Then in para 1, I think means it's just the S there that needs to be included there. And then para 3, we had some difficulty in the formulation. So in terms of that, I think we will maybe propose the following language, and I will read. States are encouraged to designate, communicate, and update national points of contact as appropriate in order to facilitate easy identification of counterparts for consultations and exchange of information. So we thought maybe that will make that paragraph to read a little bit better. Then in para 4, states are encouraged, and then more or less in line with what Japan proposed earlier. But we also thought it's important to say states are encouraged pursuant to national laws, because everything or all the ATT is basically implemented by state parties, and it's implemented within the framework of their national laws. So we think it's important just to make sure that we ensure that we include that sentence in that paragraph there as well. Para 5, states are encouraged. And then we again take out recommended, because this is already a recommendation to the state parties. And as I've said earlier, it's up to the state parties, the CSP, to decide what to do with the recommendations. In terms of paragraph 6, once again, we would request that we include subject to national laws and capacities. And I will read it. States are encouraged, subject to national laws and capacities, to carry out on-site verifications of exports and imports, and to exchange information on issued authorizations. I think that will then, to a certain extent, also deal with the problem that Japan raised, so that we don't add commitments that's not necessarily aligned with the national laws of countries. And it will also, as I've said earlier, it will also take, to a certain extent, care of the comment that was made by Japan. And then I think the last comment that we've got is para 8. And states are encouraged to exchange information at the bilateral, sub-regional, and regional levels in other multilateral contexts related to the ATT. Then likewise, states are encouraged to establish mechanisms to share information from the ATT. We would propose that we delete the wording in order to promote the exchange. So Ambassador, from our side, that's our submission. We will also submit it in writing. I thank you.
Thank you very much, South Africa. Can you repeat, please, number 6? The wording for number 6, so that we can write it down?
Yeah,
And also, like any other delegation, after we finish with you in the taking the floor, please, if you could put in the chat your proposals for the benefit of everybody. While you prepare maybe something like an email with the formal submission of proposals, we can use the chat here in this meeting to just, for the benefit of all that we are connected today, to see in writing what you propose. And in that sense, what I will ask, if you could please repeat number 6 that I didn't take note.
Okay, I said number 6 is states are encouraged, subject to national laws and capacities, to carry out on-site verifications of exports and imports, and to exchange information on issued authorizations. As I've said, it will take care of the whole question, because it might not be allowed in certain countries to do on-site verifications.
Okay, so please, Japan, I will very much appreciate when you consult Tokyo about paragraph 6, if you could consult also with the South African amendment wording, because the South African proposal keeps in the paragraph the mention to carry out on-site verifications of exports and imports that Japan said that was a problem, but includes the subject to national laws and capacities. So as South Africa is explaining, this will put those type of verifications as long as the national law and the capacities are there to do them. So if you can consult Tokyo with this South African proposal. So we will need in writing.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
Yes.
please. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so now let's move forward to look at the different proposals in Rep 3. I understand Switzerland. Yes, Switzerland, please. Well, congratulations for last night. And I don't know if you stay up late in the square with your car and having beer, but congratulations. And so please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ambassador, and also for the congratulations. It was really fun last night, and I enjoyed that the Swiss team could manage one time at least to enter the quarterfinals. Thank you very much. I would like to follow up on the statement of Japan. Thank you very much, Japan, for the statement. And I understand completely the point you're making with regards to the ATT not mentioning post-delivery verifications or on-site inspections. However, some states regard these kinds of cooperation as very useful. And therefore, I would also like to see these on-site inspections in a bit of a broader context of cooperation, which is part of Article 15 ATT. And therefore, if the language of on-site inspections is too strong for you, I would ask you to consider the following language, that we exchange the wording on-site inspections with post-delivery cooperation. So the sentence would read, states are encouraged, taking into account their national capacities, to engage in post-delivery cooperation of exports, imports, and so forth. Maybe this could be an alternative so that we don't have to strike out all regarding these kinds of cooperations that states could engage in under Article 15. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now we have a new proposal on paragraph 6. I will listen to all the proposals and I will make the last effort of a Rep 4 with a proposal by the chair, by the author, not the chair, the author of the paper, which is Argentina. And we will see if that flies, but I will try to gather the different substantive points that the delegations make today and prepare a Rep 4 that tries to include the common denominator of the preoccupations of different countries while you consult your capitals. Okay, now we have, who else? I understand you have somebody else wants the floor. Anybody raised the hand? No, I don't see. As you know, is Belgium here? Let me see. Well, I mentioned Belgium because Belgium sent a proposal also of amendment. So, but since Belgium is not here, we cannot discuss it. So anybody else wants to take the floor? Dumisani, if I may, I would like to ask you, since nobody is asking for the floor, if you could enlighten us regarding the timeline of this document towards the CSP7. Do we have a time to have a Rep 4 circulated and have a last consultation perhaps, or not? Or we send this Rep 3 and in writing proposals and we deal with them at a later stage? I understand that depends on the conference, the format, if we will have or not a space to continue discussion on certain papers. So please, if you can share with us how you see the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador, for the opportunity to comment on the point that you've raised. Regarding the roadmap between now and CSP7, we have communicated to facilitators and chairs of working groups, as well as those who have drafted working papers, to make sure that they submitted those to the Secretariat by the date of 16 July. 16 July, and that will give us some time then to prepare the documentation and get them translated, so that by the end of the month, which is the end of July, we release the documentation to states parties and other delegates to attend the conference. So the first stop is 16 July, submission of documentation, final documents by chairs and facilitators. And at the end of July, the Secretariat would circulate to all conference delegates the final documentation to CSP7. So I hope that clarifies it, Ambassador. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So just a minute, please. Okay. So what I understand after Dumisani explained to us is that in principle, we can continue consultations on this paper and until, let's say, July 15th or 14th. 15th is a Friday, so let's say July 15th. And at the end of July 15th, we should send to the Secretariat the document that we want to put forward for the conference. So we have around 15 days or a little bit more to try to find a consensus language for this paper. Second comment, even though Belgium is not here in the meeting, oh, just a minute, please. Okay, Belgium is about to connect. So I will ask Belgium because they proposed something, some change in number 7 in writing. So it's important that today we listen to all the proposals. So far, I wrap up on what we have to do. We have to take into account Japan's concern on the on-site verification. But now we have a South African proposal with a caveat and other South African proposals on other paragraphs. And we have the Swiss proposal. And now, if Belgium is already connected, we will listen to the Belgian proposal. And after we listen to the different proposals, we will try to make an effort to have a Rep 4 to see how it goes for another consultation, quick consultation next week to see the reaction with the chair's wording according to the different comments made today. Is Belgium already? I don't know. Okay, let's make a 2 minutes break to allow Belgium to connect, please. Just 2 minutes, okay? Thank you. Okay, hello. Bienvenue, Dominique. Tom. Tom Nix. Welcome. How do you say welcome in Flemish?
Welcome.
Welcome.
Yeah, not very different.
Well, I have many Flemish friends. Okay, please, we were just to wrap up, we are listening to the different proposals in order to prepare a Rep 4. We are running out of time towards CSP7, of course, so we are trying to make the effort to really substantive proposals that delegations need to make in order to feel comfortable with the paper for the CSP7, hopefully to approve it. So since you send yours in writing, I will very much appreciate if you could present them today now. Please, Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. My apologies that I only logged on now. I was called away on some urgent business just before our meeting started, so I could also not announce my late arrival. So my apologies for that, and thank you for still giving me the opportunity to say a few words about the comments that I presented already in writing. I will not repeat the background in very much detail. What I just wanted to say as the current chair of the Diversion Information Exchange Forum, I'm obviously very happy that this is addressed in this paper, as I think the DIV can be a very big contributor to information exchange on diversion issues. And I think it is great that the paper acknowledges that. Obviously, you yourself played a big role in the establishment of the DIV. And as you know, the talks that we had about establishing it were sometimes not so easy. And it's for that reason also that I think when there is a reference to the DIV in the paper, that we should be as careful as possible to make sure that what we say is completely in line with the terms of references of the DIV, also very explicitly. And that's why I just wanted to propose a few changes to one sentence and then maybe a clarification to one other. And if you agree, I will just show that also the first one now in the chat box, which concerns just an addition to the sentence where it reads that where appropriate and in accordance with paragraph 8 of the terms of reference of the DIF, expand cooperation with civil society, industry, academia, and other relevant non-state actors. I would propose to just add to that can assist in investigating, establishing, identifying, and/or addressing cases of diversion and presenting them in the DIF. That language comes straight out of the terms of reference of the DIF, and I would propose to include that just to make that explicitly clear. I don't think it changes much of the text of that sentence, but it makes it clearer what kind of actors could actually participate in that. Then the second change concerns the subsequent sentence of that paragraph, which refers to actors involved in transit and transshipment, importers, exporters, brokers, as well as states from which the transportation is organized, may also collaborate in the operation of the DIF. I did find that sentence a bit confusing in the sense of collaboration, because, well, again, in the Rule 8, there is a clear rule about participation. And I think that we should be very clear about the role of the actors that are mentioned there. They are very important actors in the process of preventing diversion, but it's not the case, obviously, that they can be considered as independent participants. So I, in that sense, would want to change that sentence a little bit to make the link with states parties or signatory states that share information or present a concrete case in the DIF, and highlight then in that sentence the role that these important actors could play in that regard in a bit more of a clearer way, I would think, and then would then read as follows: in sharing information and presenting cases, states should also consider the important role and the potential input of actors that are actually involved in transit, transshipment, import, export, and brokering. Like I said, this is just to clarify which role these actors can play according to the rules that we included in the terms of reference, just to make it explicitly clear what they could be. So I had these two little comments to make. Like I said, I don't think that they've changed the message that we bring with these recommendations in the working paper. They just clarify the situation a little bit, and I think that as the current chair of the forum, it was important that I would make these few points. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. That was all from my side.
Thank you very much. And we have in writing the proposals by Belgium. And since you are chair of the forum, I think it's very wise to get your suggestions on things important for the future functioning of the forum. So thank you. And I don't know if at this moment anybody wants to react on Belgium's proposal. If not, what I will do is to get everything that we got today in writing, and I would very much appreciate for the ones that haven't done so to send us in writing your concrete proposals. Second, I will very much appreciate Japan to consult Tokyo, since you were particularly interested in that paragraph, to consult on two proposals, the South African proposal and the Swiss proposal, so that your consultation is complete. And we will give ourselves, if you agree, a week, around a week from today, to have another quick consultation. But in the meantime, you will get Stefania, our desk officer here in the mission, contacting you to share, after we receive your comments, to share a possible wording that tries to gather the different points made by delegations. It wouldn't be yet a Rep 4, it will be only these paragraphs. You know, the amendments proposed by South Africa on other paragraphs, and the first part, a possible wording on 3, on the recommendations, 3, another possible wording on 6, where we had several proposals, and a possible wording on 7 after receiving the Belgian proposals. So we will have just specific informal consultations at delegates level until we have a new consultation like this with a Rep 4 that will see if it satisfies everybody. And that will be almost the last possibility we will have, unless we have the final the following week, because Dumisani told us that July 15th will be the deadline if we want to submit a proposal for CSP7 on this, in order to have all the necessary translations, etc. So we have at the most 2 more consultations. So if we can get everything done by the next consultation next week, I would very much appreciate the effort for consensus building on this. Of course, as we all know, and please remember this, this is not written in stone, because the diversion forum already has the possibility of being evaluated. And if that is the case after the first experience of working, we might find a trial and error approach and find that some things work and some didn't. So we will have a possibility, even in the next conference, CSP9 probably, to have a change in the modalities of the work. So what we need now is to have a framework of transparency, the transparency framework that we have as conference, in which to allow the diversion forum to work. And this was the purpose of the president's paper. We need to have a transparency and exchange information framework. And that's the purpose of this paper. So hopefully we can achieve consensus to send it and approve it on CSP 7. Since I know you have another meeting at 11 of another group, I don't want to take more time. I wonder if anybody wants to raise anything, please let me know or put it in the chat. I don't see any. So I thank you very much for all the proposals, the interest, and for participating today. Thank you, Dumisani, for the information and the support. And hope to see you next week or the following week. We'll see according to how it goes, the informal consultations on the text. But in principle, we will have a quick consultation next week if we have a Reg 4 that satisfies most of the delegations that have made proposals. If that is not okay, so have a great afternoon and stay safe and healthy as always. Thank you very much for being here. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mr.
That's why it's different. Good morning. I noticed that it's 12 o'clock. Shall we start or shall we wait 2 more minutes for participants to connect?
Good day, coaches. From our end, we're having 62 participants connected already. And our view is you can start with the session.
Okay, Dumisani, thank you. So I will proceed then. Distinguished delegates, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are located today. And thank you for joining us to these virtual informal consultations of the Working Group on Transparency and Reporting of the Arms Trade Treaty. For those of you who don't know us, I am Iulia Vlădescu from Romania, and together with my dear colleague Alejandro Alba Fernandez of Mexico, we are the co-chairs of the Working Group on Transparency and Reporting for the CSP7 cycle. As indicated in the co-chairs report of the 28-29 April meeting, which was circulated on 4 June, the purpose of this meeting is to draft revised versions of the initial and annual reporting templates, which were included as Annex A and Annex B to the said report. The co-chairs proposed to organize these consultations to facilitate the fulfillment of the working group mandate for the CSP7 cycle, namely to work towards finalizing discussions on the draft proposed amendments to both the initial and annual reporting templates included in Annexes B and C to the co-chairs report to CSP6, taking into account the comments of states parties and other stakeholders that are inserted in the co-chairs report and its annexes. We would like to start the session by briefly recalling some key steps in the reporting template review process. The decision to review the effectiveness and clarity of the initial and annual reporting templates was taken at CSP4 and reflected in the working group's mandate for the CSP5 cycle. During the preparatory process leading up to CSP5, the co-chairs of the Working Group on Transparency and Reporting requested participants to submit comments and suggestions for the possible amendment of the reporting templates. An inventory of all submitted proposals was attached to the co-chairs report to CSP5. The mandate of the working group stemming from CSP5 reflected states parties' interest in continuing these discussions and specifically to consider adjustments deemed necessary to address uncertainties and inconsistencies or to ensure compatibility between the online reporting tool and the proposed public searchable database that allows for queries and extracting data. The first preparatory meeting for CSP6, held in February 2020, enabled further discussions, which were informed by a side event organized by the Baseline Assessment Project, a session of the working group which focused on the inventory of comments and suggestions, and the presentation by the ATT Secretariat that identified areas of the reporting templates to be considered for adjustment. Then it was agreed that the co-chairs and the ATT Secretariat would prepare draft amended templates, and the intention of the co-chairs was to propose a discussion on this in a live drafting session during the second preparatory meeting, originally scheduled for April 2020. Due to the COVID-19 outbreak and the decision to carry out remote consultations during the intersessional period, the co-chairs had to adapt their approach and requested written comments and suggestions on the amended templates. The subsequent written format of CSP6 further prevented a live drafting session. Therefore, the draft amendments to the templates were included in the co-chairs report to CSP6, and the mandate to work towards finalizing discussions on the draft proposed amendments to both the initial and annual reporting templates during the CSP7 cycle was endorsed by states parties. In this light, to inform and encourage the discussion, the co-chairs, with the support of the ATT Secretariat, prepared 2 explanatory notes on the rationale of the proposed adjustments to the templates, which were presented at the working group virtual meeting in April 2021. During the said meeting, the majority of delegations that took the floor expressed favorable opinions on the suggested amendments. The co-chairs believe that an open discussion on adjustments is important for several reasons. First, it is clear that uncertainties and inconsistencies in the current reporting templates in particular affect the quality of reporting and need to be addressed. Second, adjustments to ensure compatibility with the online reporting tool and the proposed public searchable database are not optional if we want to ensure that the templates strictly correspond to the online reporting tool and if we want to move forward with the development of the public searchable database. Thirdly, the Working Group on Transparency and Reporting has had a prolonged discussion on this topic, and numerous efforts have been undertaken to fulfill this task. Therefore, the co-chair's intention is to use today's meeting to give participants the opportunity to review once again the draft proposed amendments and work constructively towards reaching an agreement in principle on revised versions of the initial and annual reporting templates that will be submitted to CSP7 for consideration and possible endorsement. Before explaining how we plan to conduct the meeting, in order to address some concerns expressed on previous occasions, we would like to make some general remarks as follows. The templates were endorsed and recommended for use by CSP2, so they are not mandatory. Therefore, when the co-chairs will be in a position to recommend revised versions to CSP for consideration and possible endorsement, we also intend to recommend their status to be maintained as such. Besides, concerning the views expressed with regard to avoiding frequent updates to the templates, we would like to recall that once the working group comes to an agreement on the proposed adjustments, our intention is to recommend to CSP the use of the revised templates on a long-term basis. This is why we strongly believe that the working group would have to ensure that in this review process, all, or at least the most urgent and relevant uncertainties and inconsistencies in the reporting templates that affect the quality of reporting are addressed. So it should not be necessary to reopen the topic of amending the reporting templates, at least until their benefits and effectiveness have been proved. We would like to propose the following conduct of the meeting. Given the limited time at our disposal, live drafting cannot be carried out. However, participants will be able to see the draft proposed amendments on the screen to facilitate follow-up. In this regard, with the support of the Secretariat, we prepared 2 versions of the templates to be reflected on the screen. The version with track changes as contained in Annexes A and B of the co-chairs report of 28-29 April meeting will serve as basis for the discussion. However, given that the said version contains some formatting errors, we also prepared a clean version in order to facilitate follow-up of the revision. The working group will examine the draft proposed amendments to the templates section by section. So we will start with the initial report cover page and introduction, section 1, national control system and list, and so on. And participants will be invited to take the floor to express if they have any objection to the draft proposed amendments and to provide specific drafting proposals. The co-chairs will take note of all the input received, and in particular the consensus on each section, and will incorporate eventual changes into new revised versions of the text. Our intention is to have a first reading of both templates today. If delegations can reach consensus on the proposed amendments during today's session, it won't be necessary for the working group to reconvene tomorrow,
unless we receive expressions of interest in doing so. However, if time does not allow us to finish the examination of both templates today, we will continue tomorrow. Likewise, if the co-chairs notice that some of the draft proposed adjustments are disputed, they will ask the Secretariat to highlight those in color so that we can move forward with a different section, and we'll try to work together with those delegations that have opposing views after the end of the meeting in order to find alternative texts later today and then present alternative proposed text during tomorrow's session for the rest of the group. After the virtual informal consultations, the co-chairs will reflect on all the input received and will propose how to follow up with this task in their draft report to CSP7. Ideally, the revised versions of the reporting templates that will come out of these consultations will be recommended to CSP7. The recommendation of the co-chairs will be informed by various factors, such as the discussions we will have during these informal consultations, the number of delegations in attendance, the CSP7 format and its agenda to be decided, among others. We would like to kindly ask the delegations to note that interpretation into Arabic, Chinese, French, Russian, and Spanish is provided during the informal consultations, but we invite delegations to make specific drafting proposals to the English version of the templates. Besides, we would like to ask delegations to comment on the draft amendments that are now on the table and, to the extent possible, refrain from making new proposals that have not been discussed previously in a formal setting. As housekeeping rules, we kindly ask participants to keep cameras and microphones off during the consultations to improve the quality of the audio and video, and turn them on only when the floor to intervene is given by the co-chairs. Also, please be reminded of the experienced difficulties of interpreters when working remotely, and deliver speeches at a normal speaking speed. We apologize in advance for any problems we may encounter during our consultations. Now, I would like to open the floor for general comments on this proposal to conduct the virtual informal consultation. And if there are no requests for interventions, we take your silence as a token of your support. So I take it that there is no objection. So we will start the discussion with the initial reporting template, and I will ask my co-chair to moderate the discussion. We will first give the floor to the delegations that have signaled their intention to speak before this meeting. Other delegations wishing to share their views are invited to signal this intention via the chat function, indicated the name of the state or organization that wishes to speak. However, the co-chairs will call first on participants registered on the list of speakers. When the list of speakers is exhausted, participants who have expressed a desire to speak via the chat function will be given the floor if there is time available. Delegations are kindly requested to use the chat function only for asking for the floor. Alejandro, if you are ready, I kindly ask you to take over from here.
Thank you, Julia. Yes, I'm ready. And as you mentioned, I will have the pleasure to conduct the revision of the initial reporting template. I'm sorry, I see a hand raised by Mr. Angus September. Yes, please take the floor, sir.
Thank you, co-chairs, for giving us the opportunity to speak. Let me start by ensuring you of our cooperation. And I also want to emphasize that we appreciate all of your efforts to build on the work that was done previously. My apology, because I will have to take you back a little bit Unfortunately, I didn't expect things to move so fast. I just stepped out, and when I came back, I saw that we were already now on the reporting templates. Because I've got one or two comments that I wanted to make on the report itself. So if you allow me, then I can proceed with it.
Please
Yes,
go
please,
ahead.
go ahead.
Thank you. Maybe just from at the beginning, I think as South Africa, we just want to emphasize once again the point that we are of the view that it's important that we need also a period of consolidation, because the constant changing of templates is creating problems for some states, specifically our state, in terms of finalizing and changing the reporting, and then subsequently it basically creates some problems when we have to submit our annual reports. Then we've emphasized previously the whole question of comparability, because we thought it's important to ensure that whatever we do, we would be able to compare the data with previous years. If we can't do that, then it may lead to certain distortions. And I think a third general remark that I just want to make here is from our perspective, we thought it's important to ensure that the work of the working group remains within the mandate as endorsed by CSP5. So if you allow me quickly to go to the report, I think it was, yeah, para 35, page 6. I think it's also just important to once again emphasize that states have the right to choose whether they want to make reports restricted or publicly available. That is a policy decision that was settled quite some time ago. And so if state parties want to exercise their right to restrict the reports, it should be respected. If you look at the last sentence in para 35, it states that signatory states that struggle to build capacity to implement the provisions of the treaty could benefit from learning from examples of other states. The problem with this assumption is that the first report details the measures taken by states, referencing the measures to the applicable law, while the annual reports deals with transfers conducted on a yearly basis. Our understanding is that the majority of reports that are placed under the restricted area are normally your annual reports and not initial reports. So according to us, it's very little to learn from the measures undertaken, in the annual report. So we just need to look at it, the way that that sentence was crafted, so that we maybe just emphasize or make sure that it's maybe a better reflection of the reality. Then paragraph 36, highlighted proposals by the co-chairs to include a discussion of this topic on the mandate of the working group for the period beyond CSP7. Our view is that there should be a clear proposal on why we would like to continue with this discussion, keeping in mind, as I've said earlier, that there is a policy position that states have the right to decide whether they want to submit reports as restricted or for public consumption. Then para 39, once again, there is a policy position that states can report on an aggregate level. So as far as South Africa is concerned, this issue also has been resolved. Then on para 55, yeah, there's still a number of questions according to South Africa that needs to be answered before we can initiate this as a project. We cannot do specifications if we are not sure what are the requirements. It would also be important to do a proper cost-benefit analysis, as there will be cost implications. So essentially, this is my comments on the report. So I'll stop there for now. I thank you for giving me the floor.
Well, thank you very much, South Africa, for your remarks. I will really much appreciate that you can send your comments in writing, so we can take a full understanding of what and consideration of what you mentioned. But as far as I can understand, this is I mean, I didn't hear any concrete proposal. I mean, specific changes to the text itself of the templates. So in this regard, I understand that we will examine your comments and take proper measure of them. And in case you have specific suggestions, questions along the revision of the text, please let us know during the discussion of the text. Thank you very much. So then, as my colleague mentioned, I will start with the revision of the initial reporting template. And first, we will go through the introduction of the initial reporting template. And I will ask participants to request the floor if they have any comments to the change proposed. No, I don't see any request. The floor here in the introduction. So let's move to the first page, the report. Then here you will see the first part before section 1. Does any delegation have any comments on this first part? I don't see any comments here. So let's move to section 1, National Control System and List. And here, yes, I would like to just point out before open the floor to participants that here after the April meetings, the co-chairs receive only the comments and suggestions from one delegation, that it was Japan. We reflected some of the changes proposed by Japan in this latest version of the reporting template, and we held consultations with Japan in order to explain which of the proposals were reflected in this latest version and which were not, and the reasons why we didn't reflect their proposals. So at some points, Japan would like to take the floor on that. Please be welcome. And also, we received very recently remarks from China, and we are conscious about that you mentioned. I mean, China mentioned that they do not support two changes in section 1I, and this position was also, we are conscious that this position was also expressed during the April meetings of the working group. The reason why the co-chair didn't reflect this comment on this revised version of the template is that we wanted to use this opportunity to have the understanding of China's position, to explain the rationale of their position, and if they have any alternative change or text proposal, and also to hear delegations about the views about on their views on this matter. As we understood from the intervention of China during the April meeting, China is not in favor of referring to Wassenaar Agreement or the EU common military list in the template, as these instruments are not widely representative. But before giving the floor to China, we would like to make the following comments. And there are two changes proposed under this section 1I. The first one concerns the conversion of the statement into a question. Besides, the original wording was phrased in such a way that it assumed that the reporting state party had definitions on the items in its national control list without directly asking whether definitions existed. So in this regard, could China support this change, which is strictly a technical nature? This is a question directly to China. And the second change that was introduced is the replacement of the phrase, and I quote, please provide more information below, with a list of options to the reporting state party can choose from. This change was made in an effort to encourage state parties to provide more information by making it easier to answer the question and make the information provided by the states parties under this section more comparable. It is true that the Wassenaar Agreement munitions lists and the EU common military list are not used by all states parties, but as a considerable number of states parties use them. This was considered when drafting the original version of the initial reporting template, and the reference to the Wassenaar Agreement is already included in the original current version of the template. Therefore, the proposed change should not be seen as an attempt to encourage states parties to provide more information about the control list that they use. This can be very useful information. For example, if an exporting state party wants to know if the importing state party controls the goods or the items that are subject to a transfer or vice versa, but to make the information reported more comparable. Even if there is no agreement on the proposed amendment, the reference to the Wassenaar Agreement will still remain on the template. So in this regard, could China reconsider its position? This is another direct question to China. Then, then I would like to open the floor for participants to comment on this section 1 of the report, the initial reporting template. Okay, I see in the chat function, I see China. Please take the floor.
Yes. OK. 我想重申一下我中方的观点。因为瓦斯纳安排和欧盟军品控制清单 缺乏广泛的代表性。正如主席你刚才所讲，而我们现在目前要修改的这个清单是有广泛代表性的。所以这个两个问题是不相匹配的。就是说，在我们这个文件中，不应该把现在安排和欧盟的这个控制清单与联合国的并列。当然，瓦斯纳安排和欧盟的这个清单都非常重要，所以相关国家可在提交报告时自愿提供涉及这些机制的情况。因为刚才主席也讲到，我们希望我们的这个修改版能够长期保持。所以如果再有其他的安排，地区性的或者是少数国家的，那我们也要列上去吗？我的发言先到此为止，所以我们希望把这两个先删除。谢谢。
Okay, gracias, China. Thank you, China. And so I understand that your position is basically to remove the references to the Wassenaar Agreement and the EU common military control list. So I would like to hear other views regarding this, because as I mentioned, this is a topic that has been worked on for several years. And yes, what we mentioned at the beginning of this session about the idea of keeping this revised version of the templates for a long-term basis is something that we are considering. It's not a decision already taken, but this is something that we would like to hear from participants as well. What we mentioned is our intention. This is what we believe that may serve to have a better understanding of the usefulness and the benefits of this revised version of the templates. But certainly we will have to hear more views on this proposal by China, if there are other countries that are in the same position as China. I don't see any request by delegations. Okay, I have the US. Please take the floor.
Yes, hi. Good morning, everyone. At least good morning from Washington. I do see a problem with how this particular section is drafted. I don't quite share necessarily the full concern of the Chinese on this, but the way it's written right now, it suggests that you can only have a universe of 3 items in your national definitions. You can either use the UN Register of Conventional Arms, or the Wassenaar Arrangement, or the EU Military Common List. Whereas, for example, the United States, we have our own internal definition, which doesn't rely on either the UN Register or the Wassenaar or the EU Common List, since we're not a member of the EU. So we have our own. So there needs to be some indication here for an option for some kind of additional source of the definitions. Because I think that's what you're getting at. What you're getting at is trying to find out more information from state parties on what they use in their national definitions. Do they use the Wassenaar definitions? Do they use the EU Military Common List, or do they use something else other than that? Because, for example, the U.S. definitions that we use in our national legislation is in the International Trafficking in Arms Regulation, which is a domestic law that we passed, and it is not based on either the UN Register or the Wassenaar or the EU Military Common List. So I think that if we had a little more flexibility here, and if you put in another option here, I think that might take care of part of the Chinese concern, as well as my concern. Thank you.
Thank you, US. Déjenme cambiar al español. Sí, como dice, realmente las opciones puestas no quiere decir que tenga que llenar alguna de esas, sino que permiten la posibilidad a las delegaciones de señalar si aplica alguna de esas, pero también es suficientemente flexible como para señalar qué otras referencias utiliza. Por eso está la opción de otras, o también la de definiciones nacionales. Pero déjenme escuchar algunas otras opiniones al respecto. Si las hay, por favor, está abierta la sesión para tomar la palabra.
Alejandro, if I may, sorry for intervening in this discussion, but first of all, just a technical problem. I don't seem to hear the English interpretation. Does anybody else have this problem? Okay, so basically, even though I have my I pressed the English interpretation button here, I heard you speaking in Spanish, but even so, I just wanted to comment to yeah, I see that people are commenting on the chat function that they cannot also hear the translation. But just to follow up on the comment made by the USA earlier, there seems to be a problem with the format of the document. But if you take a look at what is now on the screen, you will see that the checklist also includes the option of national definitions and the option of other. So this is basically what is on the screen right now. So we don't just have 3 options in that checklist, but there are 5 options, including national definitions and other. So that was what I wanted to say, but can we please ask the secretariat or the interpreters to solve the translation problem?
Ok, gracias, Julia. Sigo hablando en español para conocer si me están siguiendo los traductores, si se está escuchando la traducción a otros idiomas. Bueno, básicamente, sí, exactamente. Yo lo que estaba diciendo después de la intervención de Estados Unidos es precisamente...
Alejandro and Julia, we seem to be having a technical challenge with English. We are attending to that at the present moment. I would request that we just get given 2 minutes to try to resolve this. We can't hear Alejandro on the English channel at the present moment. Thank you. Just a 2 minutes break, please. we propose.
All right, Dumisani. So, but can we continue then in English, or do you need time to fix this? Well, I don't hear Dumisani now.
Coaches, I'm not too sure whether you got me. I was just requesting that you take a 2 minutes break in order for us to fix this.
Right, let's take a 2 minutes break to fix this technical problem with the interpretation. Apologies in advance to all delegations.
Alejandro, I think we can continue now. The English interpreter has just given us the green light.
Coaches, the proposal is that if we can continue on English, the translation from English to Spanish, that channel is working. So if Alejandro, for a moment, whilst we are fixing the problem, can continue to speak in English, the translation or interpretation to English is actually happening. But the difficulty is when you all right, it looks like the issue is resolved, and our apologies for this. So the co-chairs can continue. Thank you.
Alejandro, I think that you are on mute.
Sorry for that. Yes, basically, now I would like to see if there are more requests for the floor in this particular section that we are discussing now. Well, I don't see any request, but then again, my question to the delegation of China: So regarding the amendment to convert the sentence into a question, I would like to see if they have any concerns about that proposed amendment, and also in the second part, which is a change in the phrase. I mean, to make it more understandable. And this will be my first question to China, and also regarding the list which my co-chair Julia explained, the list provided here of possible choices that states can choose from when they are reporting in this particular section. Well, you can see that there are like yes, there are some options there, but also there is the option of the national definition and others. So this we would like to hear from China if they don't consider this as sufficient flexible for delegations to accept, or do you still would like to see the references to the Wassenaar Agreement and the EU Common Military List removed from this version? Yes, China, please take the floor.
I'm terribly sorry. Just now I heard that there's no English translation, so I just have 2 minutes off myself, so I didn't hear your first question to me. Terribly sorry for that, but I can reflect a little bit on what comments I heard. First, I didn't hear any objection for our suggestion. And second, what I heard from our American colleagues also have some concern with the fourth and the fifth. What I mean is that the fourth and fifth can address the concern of the members who are not EU or who are not Wassenaar, who are not other regional arrangements members. So I think the first one and the fourth and fifth have already been enough to address all member states' concern. And so could you please repeat your question to me? Thank you so much.
Thank you, China. Yes, well, it was basically if that my question was if you agree with the change proposed to the first part of the paragraph, which is basically to adapt into a question, a format of a question instead of just a phrase.
Can I?
Yes, please take the floor.
I don't have that problem. I don't have problem with that. I have some technical problem here, so I hope you have no problem hearing me. Thank you.
No, I understand very well. So thank you very much. So then, in order to move forward with this, so in principle, because we didn't hear any objections to the proposal of China to remove Wassenaar Agreement and the EU Common Military List into this section, in a revised version of the reporting template, we will reflect this proposal by China. If that is acceptable for the rest of the delegations. I see Belgium. Please, Belgium, take the floor.
Thank you, Alejandro, for giving me the floor. I must say that I got a little bit confused right now. Also looking at what you are sharing now as opposed to before, because I have I noticed on the previous version of the template that in the question itself, there was already reference to both the Wassenaar arrangement and the EU Common Military List. Is that the original version of the template or not? I must say I don't remember it by heart, and I don't have it with me, because if the reference is already in there to the Wassenaar arrangement in the template as it is now, which was accepted by stage, then if we accept the Chinese proposal, then basically we are not just taking out something that you proposed now, but we are taking out something that was already in the template. And I think that would be problematic if we are taking out references to documents that were accepted at the time that the templates were adopted. So could you clarify whether these references was already in there or not? Because if it was already in there, I think that we should keep that, since, as you mentioned also, these are widely used documents, not just by members of the Wassenaar arrangement or of the EU, but also outside. So it's one we can call an example of what a control is to be. So for us, it has merit of it being in there, and if it was already mentioned in the template as accepted before, then I don't see any reason why we should delete it. Thank you.
Any more views on this from delegations? Right. So then I will address this comment by Belgium. Yes, thank you, Belgium, for pointing out that. Yes, now we are seeing the version on track changes, and perhaps you can see that the original text, the current text, is right what you mentioned, that this refers to these instruments, and one of the proposed changes is basically to remove these instruments from the initial paragraph, in order to put them into separate separate options. That's what you said in the clean version that we screened just a minute before. So, but yes, basically, if delegations accept the changes proposed, which is one, to accept the changes proposed to the introductory of this section, and then the second is to accept all the choices, but except the Wassenaar Agreement and the EU Common Military List. So yes, there will be no reference at all to these instruments. So in this regard, I would like to hear more opinions on this, and maybe to see if anyone would like to have will be in a position to provide an alternative language on this, to accommodate these two different positions. I mean, one from Belgium requesting to keep the original language in the first part of the sentence, or the phrase, and the other, which is China, to remove the reference to these instruments in the list of options. I see Spain. Please take the floor, sir.
Thank you very much for giving me the floor. I would like to say that the Belgium suggestion, I agree with it. I think that if we delete this reference, we are making our reports a little bit poorer. I understand China's concerns, but the only thing that we are trying is that the different states can refer to the lists they are using. If they are pre-established lists that we know, it's just to have this information on the kinds of lists they are using. If we take away this information, then the reports will not be as rich as they would be. This is why I think that it should not be a problem to keep it as an option. Thank you.
Thank you, Spain. Any more views on this? So if there are no more views on this topic, what I would propose is to work with the delegations of China and Belgium, probably after this meeting, to bring a possible understanding on this and possible alternative text for the consideration of the delegations to be reflected in the revised version of this reporting template. If that is acceptable for delegations. I see China. I don't know if this was a previous request or is a new request.
Thank you, Chair. It's a new request. Just a quickly response to words
just let me give the floor to the US. I think they requested the floor first. Please, the US.
Sorry, I was just going to suggest, rather than deleting this, maybe we could just reorder this and put the UN Register of Conventional Arms listing first, and have it then be followed by the national definitions, and then have others, and underneath others have as a subcategory then Wassenaar Arrangement and EU Common Military List, which I think might assuage some of the what I understand to be the Chinese concerns on this. I agree with Spain that I'm loath to just delete this if these are the general sources that people use, but maybe this would make it appear more optically that we're not actually endorsing the EU military common list or the Wassenaar list. We're merely just having people indicate when they use that as the source for their national control list.
All right. Thank you very much, the US, for this this suggestion. China, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, I can keep it to our discussions after the meeting. But anyway, I just want to quickly respond to what our distinguished colleague from Spain said, that to keep it as an option. Actually, we are not against Wassenaar Arrangement or EU Common Military List. We are not against any option. But is it possible that we can just enlist every option? I think with the fourth and the fifth bullet, we have already included all the options, and we're not excluding every option. So that's my basic position. Thank you so much. I'm sorry, I didn't hear what our US and colleagues said just now. I was in the middle of some other things, so I cannot respond to that. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, China. And in the interest of time, I will keep the proposal to continue working with the delegations after this session on a possible alternative language, and to move forward to another section if that is acceptable. Right? I don't see any objections to do that. So,
excuse me. Alejandro, may I intervene and make an alternative suggestion that may accommodate all the concerns? Perhaps we can keep UN Register of Conventional Arms first, and then we keep the option national definition second, and then we include a third option, existing lists, and here we mention just as examples the Wassenaar Arrangement list and the EU Common Military List or regional list or something like that, and then other. Could this be acceptable to China?
Sorry, Chair, do you want me to respond now?
Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much for your accommodation and trying to solve this problem as quickly as we can. But of course, I can report back. But for the time being, I don't see it very convincing that the 3 bullets, what I have already mentioned, is already enough, which we use the national one and we use the others, which can have already included everything. But anyway, thank you very much for your effort, and definitely we can come back with any other suggestions. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Julia, for this suggestion, and certainly we, the co-chairs, we will continue working towards a possible alternative text to this section, this particular point, point 1.I in the reporting template. So let's move to another section. If there are no more comments on other parts of section 1, first I would like to hear if there are more topics to be addressed in this section 1 of the initial reporting template. I don't see any request for the floor. So let's move to section 2, prohibitions. And I open the floor for interventions here. I don't see any requests for the floor in prohibition, sections 2, prohibition. So let's move to section 3, exports. Here in section 3, we have on our, perhaps you remember that in the instruction, in invitation for these informal consultations, we requested delegations to register in a speakers list for this discussion, and we received the request by Switzerland on section 3. So I would like to first give the floor to Switzerland that previously requested the floor to speak under this section 3. If there is any delegate from Switzerland who would like to take the floor, you can do that now.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Co-Chair, for giving us the floor. We have just a short comment on the letter F in section 3 of the initial report template. Due to the deletion made now, the phrase, if a risk is identified, does the state ever considers whether there are, and now it's incomplete. So there is a part missing. So for this reason, the deleted part of the sentence on the measures a state takes when a risk is detected must be retained, as it was in the document of the explanatory notes on the initial and annual report templates. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Switzerland. And Yes, yeah, this is something that my colleague addressed at the beginning, that there may be some formatting errors in this version, but in this regard, perhaps it would be useful to see the clean version. I mean, you know, that you can see what this may looks like too, if this is accepted. Which actually, yes, I understand your point, but there is the second part of the sentence there reflected there.
Yeah, like this, it makes sense. Maybe there was just, as you said, a formal error in the document. So like this, it makes sense, and we can agree with this.
Okay, and yes, yes, this is actually the clean version, and there you can see that maybe in the other version it was strike down the part that says that measures that could be undertaken to mitigate, identify risks, and so on. But this is actually there. This is the latest version should look like this. So okay, and so anyone else would like to take the floor here in section 3, exports? Okay, I have South Africa. Yes, please go ahead, sir. You can take the floor.
Thank you, Co-Chair. Just per paragraph N. Page 19, where you talk about legal provisions for suspension or withdrawal of a license. According to our law in South Africa, we basically use administrative law. The commissioner of, or the Minister of Foreign Affairs has got the, sorry, Minister of Finance basically, he's got the right to publish regulations. And according to us, if we then basically delete the word legal, then it will cater for instances like in our case, where we use either administrative procedures in order to, it's published normally on a weekly basis, because we are just worried if you talk about legal provisions in our system, then it becomes complicated, because legally it basically means it must go to Parliament, stuff like that. Just so that we also cater for other countries that use more or less the same kind of system like we use in South Africa. So then we are basically just talking for provisions for suspension or withdrawal of a license. Yeah, that's what we wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, South Africa. So, were you proposing an alternative term here? I mean, I understand for what you mentioned that you have a kind of reservation on the term legal provisions according to your practice.
Yeah, what I'm saying that if we can delete just the word legal, because within our system, it basically, then you can use all of the other tools that can be used in order to do exactly the same function. But once we talk about legal provisions, then it becomes a little bit complicated, as I indicated, because in our system, we've got administrative, we've got regulations that can be published in our government gazette, and then it will have exactly the same effect as a legal provision. And I'm sure that there's some other countries that more or less have got the same system. So just to cater for that, I thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for this clarification. So Any other delegation would like to speak under this section, or in reaction to South Africa's proposal, which is, from what I understand, is to remove the reference to legal. I don't see any requests for the floor here. So in a revised version, we will reflect this proposal by South Africa, which is basically to remove the reference to legal. So it may look like it will read as there are provisions for suspension or withdrawal of a license. Okay, well, let's move to the next section. And section 4, imports. Any comments on this section? Suggestions? Objections? South Africa, I see your hands raised. I don't know if that is from the previous intervention of this, for this current section 4.
Section 4, yes, Chair.
Okay, please go ahead.
Thank you. Section 4, page 19, imports. I think it's C. Let me just go back. Yeah. You talk about avoiding using national legislation because we are a bit not concerned, but we would propose let us avoid using national legislation because, as I've said earlier, there might be some other areas in the legal system where you have definitions like I've explained earlier, you know, of administrative nature.
Thank you, South Africa. So, so I understand that you may avoid referring to national legislation.
Yeah.
Right? And in this regard, do you have any suggestion, any alternative language here?
I'll have to come back to you on that one. So my instructions just said, you know, avoid using national legislation, but I'll get back to you, Co-Chair.
Here, I would like to thank you, South Africa. I would like to hear any other views on this particular change proposed by South Africa. Well, actually, there is no concrete proposal for an alternative text, but they would like to avoid referring to national legislation. But I would like to hear views on this. I think from previous discussion of this that this is important. This has been discussed a long time ago and for a long time. And I understand that for many delegations, this reference is important, but here we would like to hear views on this. I don't see I don't see any requests. So I think I will really much appreciate the particular alternative text proposal by South Africa in order to reflect in a new version of the templates. Are there any other comments here in section 4? Right, then we will move to the next section, which is section 5, transit and transshipment. We are in section 5, transit and transshipment. Any requests for the floor here? I see also South Africa is still. You want to speak on this under this section?
Yeah, thank you, Co-Chair. Maybe for the interest in time, maybe what we can do is just to come up with a better way of trying to define that concept of national legislation, as I've explained earlier, because in our cases, it's normally defined in some other, either regulations or administrative code and stuff like that. So I don't want now to continuously make an intervention in terms of that. Let me just reserve the right, and then what we will do is to come up with something that will basically capture what we are trying to say, and then make a proposal to the co-chairs. So let me basically just reserve the right. Wherever we talk about that, then it basically, my comments is applicable to that as well.
All right, I understand. So we will highlight the reference on 5C and 5D as well, because this also refers to national legislation, and we will look for the input that is going to be provided by South Africa on this on alternative language here. Then any more views or comments on section 5? If there is not the case, let's move to section 6, brokering. The floor is open for interventions here. And I guess yes, we will underline also here in section 6C the reference to national legislation, because this was something that South Africa referred to in their previous intervention. I don't see more requests to the floor here in section 6. Then we will continue with section 7, which is diversion. As you may recall, this section doesn't have any substantial amendments, but basically an adjustment in the numbers, the list in section 7C. But if in any case, if there are particular comments, observations here, please let us know through the chat function. But I don't see requests here. So let's go to record keeping. Record keeping here are just mostly just amendments, removing redundant references to the treaty in some parts of the text. In the case you have a request here in section 8, please let us know. Record keeping. I don't see any request for the floor on record keeping. All right, let me just refer back to the points raised by South Africa previously, because I noticed in the chat function a comment by Belgium, a suggestion that it says that I am quoting national just a suggestion. If national legislation is truly unacceptable, maybe we could use the phrase the legal or administrative framework. Just a brief space to hear reactions on that from South Africa. If you consider this as acceptable, this alternative language, or you still want to reserve your right to come back to us later with an alternative text.
Chair, with your permission.
Yes.
I think,
go ahead.
Yeah, because look, the difficulty that we face is it's important for us to get it right. Because in our case, there may be legal proceedings and stuff like that. So I think to a certain extent, it captures what we are trying to say here, but let me just go back to my headquarters and just to make sure that what we are saying and what we are agreeing upon here is legally sound. So that's the only concern or that I want to raise here. So I will go back to my headquarters and then I will provide feedback ASAP.
Certainly, thank you very much for your comment, and thank you also for Belgium for this constructive proposal. And well, what I would suggest to South Africa is to also take into consideration, if possible, the proposal by Belgium, and then let us know what you think about this proposal by Belgium when you provide your inputs to this topic. Then, if there are no comments on record keeping, we move to section 9, reporting. No comments on reporting. I don't see any requests for the floor, so we move to section 10, enforcement, which again, as in the previous diversion section, there are no substantial amendments here. So we move, then I don't see any request for the floor here in section 10. Then we move to section 11, international cooperation. And here, yes, no substantial amendments here as well. Then don't see any requests for the floor here. And then on section 12, international assistance. And then here you already know, you are well aware that there is a new section here, section B and C actually, in order to provide several opportunities for states parties to express their the possibility to offer and to request assistance, international assistance. So if there is any comment, any suggestion in this section, please raise your hand in the chat function. I don't see any requests here, so we can move on section 13, disputes settlement. Again, no substantial amendments here. And I don't see any requests for the floor here in this section. So let's move to the final section of this initial reporting template, which is the Annex A, in which state parties can make a summary of the updates to the previous initial report if they have. No comments, no comments on that. So we have come to the end of the revision of the first initial reporting template. Then we will start. We still have time to continue the review of the annual reporting template, and for that, I will give the floor to my co-chair Julia to continue the revision of the annual reporting template. Thank you.
Thank you, Alejandro. I think we finished the first reading of the initial reporting template sooner than we expected, which is a good sign. Being mindful of the time and hoping that we can also finish the reading of the annual reporting template today, I will get briefly to the point, straight to the examination of the annual template. We will proceed in the same manner as we did with the initial reporting template. There are 9 sections here, so introduction, cover page, exports, imports, explanatory notes, and 4 annexes. I now invite delegations to take the floor to express if they have any objection to the draft proposed amendments and to provide specific drafting proposals to the first section, which is the introduction. So the first page of the annual report. I see that Japan wishes to comment on this, so please, Japan, you have the floor.
Hi, thank you, Madam Co-Chairs. Thank you very much for giving us the floor. Japan would like to thank the co-chairs of the Transparency and the Reporting Working Groups for their continued dedication to the work of this group, in particular for finalizing the reporting templates. Japan submitted several technical comments after the April meetings, and we are happy to see that some of them are already reflected in the current version of the templates. And one of our comments was on the paragraph 7 of the cover page of the annual reporting template, where we suggested the change. It's paragraph 7. We suggested to the change the phrases "a state party must indicate whether the form may be made publicly available, as it is not an obligation for the state parties to specify by the treaty." Having said that, we are happy with the current language that a state party needs to indicate the additions in order to instruct the ATT Secretariat where to upload the report on the ATT website, and appreciate the reflection of a comment in the current version. And we can support that the latest version of both the initial and the annual reporting templates. Thank you very much.
So we thank you very much. We thank the delegation of Japan for the comment submitted in writing, and we are happy to notice that you are fine with the alternative language proposed. Are there any other objections? I see that South Africa would like to take the floor. Please, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, co-chairs. I just want to take the floor to once again thank you for all of the hard work that you are putting into making this working group a success. I think it's maybe just important for us also to welcome some of the positive additions to the report. In particular, if you look at the last paragraph where you talk about guidance to facilitate, and then what we've been saying all along, I think, is basically now very well captured in this document. And it's essentially the last sentence where you talked about this document was endorsed. And then you continue to, at CSP5, state parties endorsed a number of amendments that were necessary to reflect the introduction of the online reporting tool. Because this is what we've been saying consistently, that the purpose was basically to review the reporting templates and templates in the online reporting tool. So we just want to also thank you for making sure that we are staying within the mandate of this working group. Thank you.
Many thanks to South Africa for this positive comment. Are there any other requests for the floor for this specific section? I see none, so I propose to move forward to the second section, which is the cover page. Are there any objections to the changes made in the cover page? I see that South Africa still has its hand raised, but I'm not sure if they want, no, they do not want to speak on this section. So then I propose to move forward to the next section, which is the exports of conventional arms. Yeah, so moving on to this section, I would like to kindly ask the Secretariat to also be prepared for displaying the clean version, if there will be a need for that, because I see that there is a formatting, there are some formatting errors here. I see that South Africa is wishing to take the floor. Please, sir, go ahead.
My apologies, co-chair, because I'm not sure whether we are the area that we are dealing with, whether the area of scope of report falls under that, or if we move beyond.
We move to the next section, but of course we are more than happy to get back if you want to comment on that. So please go ahead. Okay, basically just on page 32, you talk about scope of report, and then we saw that the deletion of voluntary information. We are just a bit concerned because, as I said earlier, that the risk is when we started to talk about matters of voluntary versus mandatory, then we are opening issues that, as far as we are concerned, has already been settled. So it's important that we talk about issues that are, yeah, excuse me, because what I'm trying to say is what one state may consider to be voluntary may not be voluntary in other states. So we must be careful so that we don't generalize interpretation of one particular
a nation and then assume that it will cover the interpretation of all other nations. Because ultimately the implementation of the treaty is a national responsibility. So I just wanted to highlight a bit as well.
Okay, thank you for that. So basically, do you agree with this amendment or not? Because I'm sorry, I did not understand. So
Sound is off. My apologies. Because you've deleted it now. So it's important for us that the word voluntary needs to be reflected there as well, as I've explained earlier. Because voluntary, what may be interpreted as voluntary by one state may not necessarily be voluntary, or the same interpretation may not be accorded to that term by another state. So I think it's important for us just to highlight that, because as I've said earlier, that the implementation of the treaty is a national responsibility by the state parties. I will provide some comments maybe later to you in writing.
okay, the word voluntary here has been deleted because as we explained previously, the designation of information to be provided as mandatory or voluntary raises a broader issue of what mandatory or voluntary information means under the treaty, and designated certain information as voluntary or mandatory has been considered confusing because the treaty does not prescribe exactly which information needs to be provided. So we did this change to reflect on some comments that were made previously with regard to that issue. I would like to know if there are any other views on this particular amendment.
Yeah, maybe just to be very clear, because the problem is basically when you as a state then has to explain why and what kind of information was withheld. I think that's the point that I'm trying to make. Because as I've said earlier, that when we, for example, as South Africa ratified the treaty, we've ratified it on the basis of what we are, of the obligations that was existing at that point in time. But if you then now ask state parties to explain afterwards why, what kind of information was withheld, this is, I think, essentially where we've got the problem, because we don't need to explain it states, because we are allowed within the treaty to decide whether we want to share certain information or not. So when you then ask later at a later point why, according to us, it's, we don't need, state parties don't need to give any explanation why certain information was withheld, because it's their right, they've got the right to do that. I hope I made myself clear now.
Yes, I understand your concerns. It's just that I would like to add that states are not required to explain, are just required to consider explaining. Besides, this part is highlighted in gray, so even though so it remains a voluntary information to be provided by the reporting states parties, even if we don't particularly include this word voluntary there. But if other delegations can accept this, so the proposal that we keep voluntary information, of course, then we will reflect on this. Are there other views on this particular proposal? I see there are none, so we will reflect on this and see how we can move forward. Okay, so I propose we proceed to the next section, which is the export of conventional arms. Are there any observations here? USA, please.
I have a question. For the text that is under the heading export of conventional arms, the text which reads shaded columns and rows represent information that goes beyond common understanding. Is this something that would actually be included in the form, or is this just commentary explaining what's below?
It will be included in the form, and this is to align the language we use in the template with the language we use in the frequently asked questions type guidance document.
Okay, in that case, then I do actually have some problems with how the language in here is phrased. I think it would be better if you change the phrasing in general to read something along the lines of, and this is not a specific proposal, I can come up with one if you want, but state parties are encouraged to provide as much detail as possible in filling out the forms below. Because I don't think that in the reporting template that we should talk about common understandings and at a minimum in here. I think that's somewhat problematic. Again, I think it would be better just to have some general language encouraging state parties to fill the forms out as fully and as completely as possible.
Okay, so may I ask you to write your proposal on the chat function, please, so that everybody could see it?
Okay. I will do that in just a second and let everyone see it.
Sure. Okay, I see your proposal now, but I would just like to comment that basically what we tried to do with the proposed language was to explain what shaded columns and rows are for. So we changed the word voluntary information with the phrase information that goes beyond the common understanding, simply to explain in this particular template why some columns and rows are shaded in gray.
Okay, so my specific concern is I don't want to have mentioned in a mandatory form that states use to report common understanding, the phrase common understanding or phrases similar to that here. I'm trying to find a way around that. I understand that it's in the frequently asked questions book, and I don't have a problem with that because that's an optional tool to assist state parties in reporting to the treaty. But as far as what we have here, this goes beyond an optional tool to assist state parties in there. This is going to be one of the two ways that state parties can report to the treaty. And I don't think it is a good idea here to talk about common understandings and the like, and suggest that in any way that they have any standing, under the treaty or something. And I find that phrase problematic, and I'm trying to find a way to get at some of the ideas that you're talking about without actually using that phrase.
Okay, so we will try to reflect on that a little bit longer. I don't know if we still have time to do this today, but I'm wondering whether there are any other reactions to this specific topic. I see Belgium. Belgium, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Julia. I'm not 100% clear about what Bill is explaining, because on why this would be acceptable language in the guidance document and not in the template, because in the end, the template is as a voluntary instrument to report as is the guidance document itself. Still, if states want to use their own template or the UNROCA template, they are allowed to do so. They are allowed to do so. So if this is a reflection of what is in the guidance document, then I don't necessarily see a problem with that aligning the two, because they are both voluntary instruments for states parties to use. So maybe I just didn't understand the explanation that was given. So if Bill could clarify that, I would be grateful. Thank you.
Would you like to react on that, please?
Yes. The documents do not have the two different things do not have the same standing. In the case of the reporting template, there are three ways that states can report information to the ATT. You can report information by submitting a copy of your UN register return, plus then you're going to have to find a way to make your initial submission. But that's one way. The second way is you can come up with a national form. And the third way is to use this reporting template that we have here, which is the one that is then going to be, if we ever manage to fully set up and get fully operational, the electronic reporting and like, this is going to be the other one. And this one has been recommended for use by the state parties, and it doesn't have the same standing as the other one. As far as the frequently asked questions, I think the frequently asked questions are useful as a way to assist state parties and who are confused or who need some more clarification about how to go about reporting. And it's just an assistance document. This document is not an assistance document. This document is, on some level, is one that it is being recommended that states actually use if they don't use one of the other two ways of reporting, either the UN register reporting or a specific national one. And I'm uncomfortable in this form in talking about common understandings and like, which the expectation of many people is that most people will use this form to report to the ATT. Again, the frequently asked questions document, I think, is useful as a tool to assist state parties in figuring out how they need to report to the treaty and carry that out. But it's just a tool to assist state parties. It doesn't provide guidance in the sense of instruction. It provides some additional, commentary and explanation. And I find having the phrase in here, common understanding, is problematic for me.
Thank you, the USA. Belgium, Tom, does this answer your question?
Not entirely, because maybe it's a semantic issue, because still they do. What I do still want to say is obviously that the alternative text does not cover or has the same meaning as it was before, and how it was intended by the change in the text to clearly make a difference between what we highlighted in gray and what is not. So yeah, maybe we should give some further thought then on how that can be better indicated there. What is the difference between them? Because in the end, I think that what was the most important was that the word voluntary needed to be taken out there, because it is not something that is in the treaty and has been confusing to people using the template. But in the end, so I don't think that the text that was now proposed is necessarily a good one, and so maybe we should then think about this a little bit further on how to solve this.
Thank you to both of you for your comments. Indeed, I also think that the proposed text does not reflect our initial intention, but I'm sure that we can work together after this meeting to come up with an alternative solution. I would like to know if there are other observations, other remarks to what has just been said. If not, the co-chairs will reflect a little bit later on this language and try to come with an alternative proposal that can address the concerns that have been raised. I see no requests for the floor, so I would like to ask once more if there are any other objection to this particular section, the section on exports. If not, I suggest we move to the next section, which is imports, and I believe that the same comment made by the USA with regard to information that goes beyond the common understanding also applies to this one. So we will also reflect the alternative text that we will come up with later in this particular section. Are there other observations with regard to this section? I see none, so I suggest we move to the explanatory notes. And in the explanatory notes part, I noticed that in note 16, the last sentence was deleted by mistake. This is obviously an error, and we will make sure to correct that in the revised version that we will draft further. Looking at the speakers list that we received from the Secretariat, I noticed that Switzerland wanted to take the floor on this particular note. May I ask the Swiss delegation if this is what they intended to signal, or if there is any other comment that they would like to make?
Thank you very much for giving me the floor, co-chair. Also, thank you very much for all the efforts that you're putting in up amending these templates. It was actually the comment that you just made on par 16 that we wanted to reflect. We thought that it could have been a mistake and you just confirmed it. So it's okay for us. And I would also like to add that the other amendments in this section of the annual report, in all the annual report, are okay for us. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Switzerland, for your vigilance. It is comforting for the co-chairs to know that they can count on the support of delegations that pay attention to that level of detail. So thank you for that. Now that we settled this, I would like to ask participants if there is any objection with regard to the changes that have been made to this section. I invite you to use the chat function to request for the floor. I see South Africa. Please, South Africa, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's basically just one comment, page 40, para 16, towards the end of the line. Where you talk about smaller types of weapons as an aggregate. I think this is just one of the points that we wanted to say previously, that once there's a policy position like issue of aggregate data or disaggregator, it's important that the policy position must always take precedence. So I just wanted to comment you on that particular issue. I thank you.
I also thank you for this intervention. Are there other requests for the floor? I see none, so I suggest we move to Annex 1. In Annex 1, only one change has been made, which is the correction of the word registry to register. I believe there is no objection to that, but in any case, I would like to invite delegations to signal possible objections. I still see the hand of South Africa raised. Thank you. Okay, so I see there is no request for the floor. So let's move to Annex 2. Here the word voluntary has been replaced with additional national categories. Does anybody want to raise any objection to that? I see no requests for the floor. So let's move to Annexes 3A and 3B. There is only one change that has been made and is reflected in both annexes. The phrase is available only to states parties has been replaced with may be made publicly available. Basically, the original phrase has been misinterpreted by some states parties and has caused some confusion. And besides, some tick boxes were added. Does anybody have any objection to that? I see none. So I think we have finished with our work for today. I think we had a great discussion. It was easier than the co-chairs had expected. Having said this, I think there is nothing else to say from my part, and to thank all participants for attending today's meeting. We greatly appreciate the time you have given us. And before wrapping up this meeting, I would like to hand over to my co-chair for the closing remarks. Alejandro, if you are ready.
Yes, thank you, Julia. And yes, I also want to thank all the participants for their participation and their valuable contributions to this revision. The discussions have been very rich, and I think we have a great amount of inputs that we have to consider. And we are going to work the rest of the day today to have alternative language to be included in a revised version of the reporting templates. We hope to be able to have this revised version by the end of today, so you can have a look on that before our session tomorrow. And that's going to be also for discussing the alternative text that we can reach in the coming hours. So I just encourage delegations that were engaged in discussions today to be open and constructive for alternative solutions, and we will contact them in the coming hours. But yes, above all, my thank you also to the Secretariat for their support and the interpreters for their great assistance in this session. Thank you very much. And I would like to pass the floor to the Secretariat if they want to say something to finish this session.
Thank you, coaches. I've got nothing more to say, but say thank you for running this session. Thank you so much. I guess with that, then we can call it a day and then meet tomorrow at 12 o'clock.
Yes, that's right. Thank you very much, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.